Okay, I'm going to try and do better at answering questions from people. I finally got my equipment back after being stolen, or I've replaced it. So we're going to go ahead and answer this question. This came from one of my commenters on one of my videos. And it's one of my videos that I get the most gruff about. They tell me I did a terrible job of explaining it, which I rushed it, and I kind of see that too. So I'm going to try and slow things down, maybe make a little longer video here. And the key to math understanding is find somebody. When you don't understand these and you're watching these videos, find somebody that understands. There's somebody in your location that does, I guarantee it. And talk with them about it. And ask me. I'll try to get to them. I have hundreds of comments, and so it's tough to get through to them all, but we'll do the best I can. So here's the equation. It says, or the problem. Find the equation of a line that is perpendicular to the equation x minus 3y equals 5 and passing through the point 4, negative 2. So there's a lot going on here. I mean, do you have a method for finding the equation of a line? First off, if you don't have that, there might be some other videos, and maybe search that. Find the equation of a line. What does that mean? What does the word perpendicular mean? Make sure you understand that as well. And then, just generally, this equation here, that's a linear, that equation creates a line on an XY plane. What form is it in? What are the forms of a line that we use, that we've standardized? And then the point 4, negative 2. So the thing I like to do before I even go to any algebra is I like to graph it to see what's going on. And I have the equation already plugged in here, so I'll put that in there, and there it is. So x minus 3y equals 5. That's this green line here, and that gives you an idea of what we're looking at. So that is the line. That's all the points that satisfy that equation. Okay. What about the point? So we'll just plug that into the input. So 4 and negative 2, there it is. There's point A. Okay. And so it wants us to find the equation that is perpendicular to the green line but goes through the blue point. And so on GeoGebra, it has that. If you look under construction here, you can see it, the second button over. And I'll try and do it, but basically what you have to do is it didn't show up underneath, but you have to select a point. It tells you what to do. Select the point and select the line. So we'll select the point, we'll select the line, and there it is. And so that's the equation we're looking for. Notice it makes a 90-degree, whoops, I want that back. And notice it makes a 90-degree, oh, there it is, angle. I don't know if it'll let me draw on it. No, it won't let me draw on it, but that's okay. So it makes a 90-degree angle. And there's actually the answer. That is the equation. It's 3x plus y equals 10. That's the answer we're looking for. But I'm guessing you're going to have to do this by hand on a test. You're probably not going to be allowed to graph this. And so let's talk about the algebraic way of doing it. How do you do this by hand without all the technology that'll do it for you? But it's always good to look at GeoGebra first so you know what's going on. The first thing you need to understand about this is there are 3 equations of a line that we use. So we'll tackle that part first. And so, okay, and the 3 forms are this. And there's the standard form of a line, and that's the one you're seeing. AX plus BY equals C. That's a standard form that we use across the world for a line. And there are many, 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 many forms. We're going to talk about 3 of them. The A, B, and C, these are just variables that hold the coefficients. So, 2x plus 4y equals 1. That 2, 4, and 1 are the A, B, and C. They're just integers that we're going to use here. It has no relevance to this problem yet. The other form, and the one that's probably more useful, is called slope-intercept form. Okay, slope-intercept form is the one you see most often. It's typically written as y equals mx plus b. M, where m stands for the slope of the equation. And if you don't know what slope is, you probably shouldn't even be watching this video. You need to go look at, look at the concept slope and understand that. And this is y-intercept. Okay, so that's the slope-intercept form. And then the third form is very useful, but it's somewhat confusing, and maybe it all is, who knows. But the other one is called the point slope version. Point slope. And we're going to use all 3 of these in this video. And so the point slope, when you see it in a textbook, it looks typically like this. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, where y1 is a point that we're dealing with, x1's a point that it's in that point, and I'll show you. And m stands for the slope, just like it does here. So m and m, when you see m typically in an algebra class, that stands for slope. Okay, I don't like to use this form because point slope form is literally the slope with a point. And you guys are used to seeing the slope of an equation as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 equals your slope. Well, if you can see the connection here in the algebra, this is the form I like to use for point slope form. And all you have to do to get it from this form to this form, so that it looks similar, because it is the point and the slope, is to divide by the x minus x1 on both sides of the equation. So we're going to divide that on both sides. Well, x minus x1 cancels out. And so the point slope form of the equation I like to use is this one. And I know that confuses the heck out of people. But I love it. And if you can get some base in the slope area, it's kind of a nice connection between the two, between what slope is and what a line is. And anyway, I'm talking too much. So these are the 3 forms, and we'll come back to them. I've kind of lost track of our problem. So here's our problem again. Find the equation of a line that is perpendicular to the equation x minus 3y equals 5 and passing through 4, negative 2. So the first thing is we need to find the slope. We've got that equation, x minus 3y equals 5. If we put it in this form, the point slope form of the equation, I'll write it up here, that m is the slope right there. And so this is in standard form, that first form I showed you. And so we need to put it in this form. So to do that, you got to get the y all by itself. So here's the y. We need to get that alone. And I like to leave it on the left side of the equation. So you work the equation backwards. So how do we get rid of this x? Well, what you can do is subtract it. So if you take x minus x, you get 0. Well, you can't do something on one side of the equation without doing it on the other, so I'll also subtract x from this side of the equation. And so what we're left with then is negative 3y, because this zeroes out. I can put the 0 there, but I'm going to take it away in a second. So negative 3y equals 5 minus x. Okay. Now, notice the form that we have. We've got mx plus b right here. It's in that order. The x comes first. So we're going to put that x first. And so to do that, again, it's 0 minus 3y, so the 0 can, anytime you add 0, it doesn't change. It's the identity property. And I'm going to use the commutative property to switch around the x and the 5. So we've got negative 3y equals negative x plus 5. So that's the commutative property and the identity property used kind of simultaneously. Then you've got to get rid of the negative 3. And so to do that, you have to divide by negative 3. So we'll divide, because this is multiplication, so the opposite is to divide. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1. And you have to do the same on the opposite side of the equation. We have to divide that entire side over there by negative 3. And now we can simplify it. So negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1. And so we have y equals, and what I'm going to do is divide both sides. So we've got negative x over negative 3, and we also have 5 over negative 3. So the negative 3 divides both sides. Okay, so what we're left with then, and if we simplify this, wow, that green is bright. For me anyway. So y equals, well, we'll simplify this thing. Basically there's a negative 1 here. So negative 1 divided by negative 3 is just the fraction 1/3. And I'll stick the x beside it. So that's the same as saying, so negative 1 divided by negative 3 is the same as saying 1/3 x. Plus 5 over negative 3. All right. This is the y-intercept. This is the slope of the equation. That's the whole reason we did all of that, is to find that slope. So the slope of my equation is it rises 1 and it runs 3. Now, hopefully you understand that perpendicular slope, so this rises 1 and it runs 3. That's the definition of slope, rise over run. So the opposite of that is a perpendicular slope, and it both reciprocates and it changes the sign. So negative 3 over 1 is you rise a negative 3 and you run 1. Those two slopes are perpendicular to each other, and I encourage you to try it. In fact, I'll just show it quickly here. So just to show you that slope, we had 1/3 and negative 3 over 1. Those were our two slopes, and they're perpendicular to each other. And I just wanted to show it to you. So let's say we had a starting point. We can put a little xy axis anywhere. We'll say this is our starting point. So a slope of 1/3, we'll do that in blue. This is our starting point. You go up 1 and then right 3. 1, 2, 3. So this is a slope of 1/3. That's what it looks like. It rises 1, it runs 3. Okay, a slope of negative 3 over 1, and I'll do that in black. A slope of, starting from the same position, we're going to, and of course, I've got to scroll down a little bit so we have room. You go, starting from the same position, you go down 3. 1, 2, 3, because it's negative 3. You run negative 3, or rise negative 3, and then you run 1. And so there is that slope. Notice it makes a 90-degree angle. Those are perpendicular to each other, and that just kind of shows that to you. There's other ways to talk about it, but I just wanted to show that just in case that was confusing. So we do know the slope then is 1/3. The slope of a perpendicular line then to that is -3/1. All right, so what do we need to do with that? So let's go back to our original problem. So we've got the perpendicular stuff figured out. And now we're going to find that equation. What we need next is our point, 4, -2. So we know our perpendicular slope is -3/1, and you wouldn't need the over 1 part. And our point is 4, -2. And then we want to look at our 3 types of equations. So I love using this one in black for point slope form because it is the slope equation. But what we're leaving out, we're going to leave that y in place and that x in place and put points in here for y1 and x1 and a point and then your slope for m. So we have everything we need to find this equation. Okay, so this here is x1. This is y1. It's our first x. You can just call it your first x and your first y. This is our slope. So let's rewrite our point slope form of our equation, the form I like to use, which some people don't like because because the books don't use this form. But that is the slope equation. And so we can just plug this in. This 4 goes right here into x1. This -2 goes right here in place of the y1. The slope right here goes in place of the m. So you're just using substitution. So y minus a -2 over x minus 4 equals your slope of -3/1. All right. Now, in my last video when I did this, I really confused a lot of people because now we're going to have to put it in a form. Right now you've answered the equation or the question. That is a linear equation that's perpendicular to our original formula and passes through the point 4, -2. But it's not in a standard form, or it's not in a form we like to use. And so the 2 forms we like to use are the standard form. So we need to either put it in this form, ax plus by equals c, or we need to put it in this form, y equals mx plus b. Because that's what you're going to be required to do on most of your standardized tests. And so the way to do that, first off, let's simplify some things. A negative and a negative is a positive. Minus minus becomes positive. So that is y plus 2. So what we've got there is y plus 2 over x minus 4 equals -3/1. Now, there's a method called cross multiplying. You may or may not know it. If you know it, great. If you're not so sure, you might look and see a few examples of it, but I'll try to do my best to explain it here. And so point slope form, or cross multiplying, forgot what I'm doing, is basically we're going to take both sides of the equation. We're going to take this side times 1 and this side times -3. And that's called cross multiplying. It's actually a trick. It's kind of a witchcrafty thing. We're actually multiplying both sides in all actuality. We're multiplying both sides of the equation by the reciprocal, which is 1 over -3. So if you multiply this side of the equation by 1 over -3, it's the same thing as cross multiplying. And notice what happens here. This side becomes 1. But if you cross multiply, it's kind of nice because you can avoid some of that confusion in fractions. You can avoid fractions. That's why I like using it. So what you do is you take 1 times y plus 2. And this is a super confusing trick, but it's nice when you can use it. And negative 3 times x minus 4. And so that's the cross multiplying part. Then you use distribution to go through that. So y plus 2, because 1 times y and y 1 times 2 is just y plus 2. And then you take negative 3 through here, and that gives you negative 3x plus 12. Okay. And so the next step you have then is to, let's put it in y equals mx plus b first. So if you solve this thing for y, you've got one of your forms already. So all you got to do is subtract 2 from both sides. Well, then that leaves you with y equals negative 3x plus 10. Okay, if you want to put that in standard form, all you have to do is move the 3x over. So this is one form. This is point-slope form. Or not point-slope form, slope-intercept form. And then if you take the other way, depending on what you are required to do on the test, or whatever you're doing, you're going to add 3x over, and that puts us into standard form. So 3x plus y equals 10. And so there's your standard form of the equation. And if you check it in your graphing calculator, that's what we ended up with. 3x plus y equals 10. That black line. We found that equation. So I hope this helps. And I tried to explain a little better. I maybe got off track on a couple of spots, but I did try to explain each piece in a slower, kind of more coherent way. And I hope it's better for you. So thanks a bunch, and see you next time.